Right now, more than 100,000 tower cranes are operating worldwide, and everyone faced the same engineering problem. How do you raise a machine taller than the structure it's building? The answer is a repeatable sequence of hydraulic lifts, high-strength steel, and a balance so critical that millimeters determine whether a crane climbs or collapses. But that process cannot begin until something far less visible is ready. Beneath every tower crane stands a reinforced concrete pad engineered for one purpose: to anchor thousands of tons of dynamic force with absolute reliability. The process begins long before any steel rises. Structural engineers specify a dense rebar grid, often with number 20 bars spaced at 150 millimeters, tied into a mat that may reach 900 millimeters thick for high-capacity cranes. Into this grid, precision-placed anchor bolts are set, each one mapped within millimeters of tolerance because any misalignment will ripple upward into the crane's mast, threatening stability. The concrete mix is designed for performance, not just strength. Specifications call for a 28-day compressive strength of 30 megapascals, a standard that matches the American Concrete Institute's requirements for heavy equipment pads. High early-strength admixtures may be added if scheduled compression is critical, but most sites still rely on a full month of curing. During this period, the pad is kept moist under curing blankets, and field cast cylinders are regularly tested in a laboratory press. Only when the test samples crush above the 30 megapascal target does the next phase proceed. No detail is left to chance. Laser levels confirm the pad's flatness within 5 millimeters. Maturity meters and compressive tests document the entire cure. Before the first mast section is bolted down, a licensed structural engineer reviews every result, signs off on the strength report, and certifies the foundation for load. This single approval unlocks the rest of the crane's assembly. If the pad is undersized, if the anchors drift, or if the concrete fails to reach strength, the entire operation halts, because the margin for error is measured in millimeters, and the consequences of imbalance are measured in lives. The mast of a tower crane forms its structural backbone, assembled from steel lattice sections engineered for both strength and precision. Each section, typically weighing around 4,200 kilograms, is fabricated from high-strength structural steel such as ASTM A572 or S355, with a yield strength near 345 megapascals. The lattice configuration distributes compressive and bending loads efficiently, allowing the mast to resist the immense forces generated during lifting and climbing cycles. Assembly begins with the careful alignment of the first mast section over the cured foundation bolts. Subsequent sections are lifted and positioned using a mobile crane, with crews relying on laser alignment tools to ensure the mast remains perfectly plumb. Even a deviation of a few millimeters can compromise the crane's stability at height, so every joint is checked before bolting proceeds. High tensile bolts, usually grade 8.8 or 10.9, secure each flange connection. The bolting process follows a two-step torque protocol. First, all bolts are tightened to 70% of the final specified torque in a star pattern to seat the flanges evenly. Then, after verifying uniform seating, the remaining 30% is applied, bringing each bolt to its full rating, often 140 Newton meters for M24 bolts or 200 Newton meters for M30 bolts. A manufacturer's technical representative oversees the process, logging every torque value for quality assurance. This bolt log becomes part of the permanent record, ensuring traceability and compliance with both engineering standards and safety regulations. Once the mast reaches its initial height, its verticality and bolt integrity are verified again by the manufacturer's representative before the slewing unit is installed. At this stage, the mast functions as a rigid, load-bearing tower, ready to accept the rotating machinery above. The precision and documentation at each step are not just procedural, They are essential for the flawless balance required in the next phase when the crane will begin to rotate and eventually climb under its own power. A tower crane's transformation from a rigid mast to a working machine begins with the slewing unit, a massive bearing assembly set atop the mast, engineered for a full 360-degree rotation under heavy load. This bearing, often a double-row tapered roller or four-point contact design, ranges from 1.5 to 2.5 meters in diameter. Its alloy steel ribs and rollers, hardened to 60 HRC, withstand both axial and radial forces as the crane lifts and swings. But rotation alone isn't enough. The counterweight must be perfectly matched to the crane's model and anticipated loads. On-site, crews cast the counterweight in high, early-strength concrete, forming slabs up to 4 by 5 meters, 0.75 meters thick. Steel reinforcement is tied into a dense grid, then encased in formwork. After pouring, the slab is vibrated, cured, and weighed. Accuracy within 1% is mandatory. The center of gravity is checked with a laser plumb line or digital inclinometer, and even a 20mm offset is corrected with shims or topping patches. Once cured, the slab is secured to the counterjib with high-strength bolts, a rubber bearing pad absorbing vibration. Before the crane can rotate, a static balance test is run. The slewing unit turns slowly, load cells tracking the reaction curve. Any imbalance is corrected on the spot. The site safety officer verifies every mass and torque record, ensuring the counterweight's moment precisely offsets the jib load. This meticulous process prevents tipping and reduces bending moments on the mast, minimizing stress during both lifting and climbing. A tower crane's ability to climb relies on a dedicated hydraulic system engineered for both power and precision. At the heart of the process is a climbing frame fitted with a high-pressure hydraulic jack, typically operating near 300 bar. Before each ascent, sensors confirm that the crane's center of gravity is perfectly aligned above the jack. Any deviation beyond a fraction of a percent triggers an automatic halt. Once alignment is verified, the hydraulic engineer initiates the cycle from a control panel, watching digital pressure gauges and position sensors for real-time feedback. The climb begins with the jack extending its piston in a controlled stroke, raising the entire slewing assembly and counterjib by about half a meter. This first movement is slow and deliberate, taking around 10 seconds to allow the structure to settle and for load cells to confirm that forces remain within tolerance. The climbing frame's mechanical locks hold firm at every stage, preventing any slip. After the initial lift, the jack retracts, the frame's ratcheting system engages, and the process repeats, usually 2 or 3 times per cycle. Each sequence adds up, creating a vertical gap equal to the length of a new mast section, typically 6 meters. The crew then inserts the steel segment, aligns its flanges, and bolts it in place, working to millimeter precision. Only after the bolts are torqued and the lock pins are resecured does the hydraulic system prepare for the next climb. This cycle can be repeated dozens of times, with each successful lift extending the crane's reach by another 6 meters. On super tall projects, these incremental climbs allow the crane to surpass 300 meters in height, always guided by the same closed-loop system of hydraulic pressure, sensor feedback, and mechanical locking. The result is a self-building structure that grows in measured, repeatable steps, each one governed by engineering discipline and exacting technical checks. Urban construction sites often leave no room for external climbing frames or sprawling crane bases. Here, the tower crane climbs within the building's core, relying on a system of steel collars anchored to the structural floors every 3 levels. Each collar locks the mast to the surrounding concrete, transferring the crane's load directly into the finished structure rather than the ground below. As the building rises, a site planning coordinator inspects and signs off on the placement of every collar, verifying that each is properly torqued and aligned. The climbing system uses a ratcheting gear mechanism. Once the hydraulic jack lifts the crane, the ratchet locks it in place, preventing any downward slip even if pressure is lost. This internal climbing approach can cut the crane's extension schedule by up to 50% compared to traditional external methods, allowing the project to advance floor by floor with minimal street disruption. The result is a safer, more efficient lift cycle, engineered for dense city environments where every meter counts. Before dismantling begins, the tower crane must pass a static load test at 80% of its rated capacity, in line with OSHA 1926.1435. The foreman oversees this process, confirming that all safety systems respond correctly under simulated maximum load. Only after passing does the crew start removing mast sections, reversing the assembly sequence with the same attention to torque logs and alignment. On super tall projects, those rising above 300 meters, a rooftop auxiliary crane is assembled in pieces, hoisted to the top floor, and anchored to the building. This smaller crane methodically lowers the main tower crane's components one by one, avoiding the need for massive ground-based equipment. Each step follows a strict checklist, with the foreman signing off after every lift, ensuring compliance and safe operational closure. Every new skyline depends on machinery engineered for precision, where a millimeter of imbalance can jeopardize an entire structure. As cities reach higher, the self-climbing crane remains essential, a dynamic solution continuously refined that shapes the vertical ambitions of modern construction. The future of building still hangs from these silent giants.